The LA Galaxy general manager, Will Kuntz.
The toughest thing about MLS is that the rules make it impossible to have deep rosters. If you lose a guy like Riqui Puig, it's impossible to replace them. With a guy like Joveljic, in any other league in the world, a club like the Galaxy and where we sit relative to spend, it's like you just re-sign them.
Unfiltered Soccer with Landon and Tim, presented by Volkswagen. Volkswagen has long been a supporter of soccer in America and has proudly been a partner of U.S. Soccer for the past 5 years.
LD, my good man, I am super excited to be here. I got a beard trim yesterday, woke up at the crack of dawn 2 days in a row, covered the Premier League on NBC, which is amazing, and I get to come to you. I'm getting on a flight after this, and I'm headed to San Diego. Sunny
God's
San Diego.
country, baby. God's country.
That's what you say. And for people who don't know, with Unfiltered Soccer, we have lots of things we need to do. Content shoots, all the rest of it. And Landon oftentimes obliges and comes to New York City. So this time he gets his way, and we're going to San Diego. So I can't wait to see you, bud.
Cannot wait to see you. My weekend was awesome. My dad came out to visit.
Nice.
Watched my all my kids play sports all weekend: flag football, soccer, baseball, all the things. Awesome weekend. I was exhausted. As you know, you wrote a book.
Yes.
And that process, I'm in the process of writing a book, and it's almost done. But just the editing part and reading it, and then reading it again, and deleting it. You want every word to be like perfect, you know? Dude, what a grind. Nobody tells you this. You're like, oh, it's great. I'll write a book. And now I'm like, this sucks, dude.
Dude, it's a labor of love, isn't it?
It has to be.
I remember writing the book with Ali Benjamin, who's my ghostwriter, and I just remember thinking, I've buried some crap way down deep, and I was like, I don't really want to bring this. Like it's like arduous to have to relive some of that stuff. I mean,
and it's like, what do you put in? What do you don't? How deep do you want to go? And at the end, I was like, whatever, dude. Let's just throw it all in, and we can cut it out. But now we're just.
I'm excited to read. I was a small.
It'll be fun.
I was a small part of that journey, and I know you're, from beginning to end of your career is incredible. So I'm looking forward to getting a signed copy, which I know you'll give me. So that's awesome. That's exciting.
All right. Well, if I make it to that, I might just say forget it because it's just exhausting. All right, guys. As always, follow us on social media, Unfiltered Soccer. Subscribe to the show on YouTube. A lot of people subscribing now, and it's making the show more popular, getting in front of more people. So follow on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. If you love what we're doing, please rate it. And as always, email us at feedback@unfilteredsoccer.com. All right, Timmy, let's jump in this weekend. MLS. First game that a lot of talking points for a lot of reasons. Minnesota hammered Miami. I know short history for Miami, but that was their worst loss since Messi's been there. 4-1 they lost. Minnesota's great because I hate watching them. I hate watching Minnesota play. I think they had 27% of the ball in this game, and they could care less.
Sure.
Home, away, whatever. Sure. And what's happening in world soccer now, Tim, is it's like the Barcelona have the ball. Pep Guardiola have the ball. And now teams are going, don't care. Some teams are just saying, that's great. You can be sexy and have the ball. Don't care. And Minnesota does it every week, and they're going to do it. Yeah. And then they wait for their chance, and they go score, and they score, and they score. Yeah. And they've been good, man. They're second in the West. Miami, it feels, Tim, like schedule's starting to catch up a little with them. And that's the MLS problem, right? Is first 11, 13, 14 are good enough, but when you get deep into your roster and you have to fill in some spots, it's just not good enough.
We have some interesting comments on this episode about roster depth, which we'll get to later. Look, I think it's the narrative that I've been shouting for forever, and I'll continue because I believe it wholeheartedly. There's more than one way to win a football game. You've heard me say this. So this concept of, it's ugly, doesn't matter. Winning is not ugly. Winning is not ugly. Winning is great. So if Minnesota wants to do it in a certain way, have at it. Do exactly what you want to do. And they're getting the results. I mean, in terms of Miami, look, I think the worry is, you and I have talked about this since the beginning of the season, preseason this year. Like it's MLS Cup or bust for Miami, right? Like that's success. They won a Supporter Shield last year. So absolutely nail that onto the wall, into the trophy case. That's a successful season. But as you know, you've won multiple MLS Cups. That's what they're thriving and driving for. So if it doesn't happen, that's a big issue. But particularly because we're seeing the best of Messi in the MLS, and if they don't get that, then it's a little bit of a not a stain, but people will be underwhelmed. So but I also think they, I'm still not counting them out. I still know on their day they can figure some stuff out, and single-handedly Messi and others can take over a game in the MLS. So I'm cautious when I talk about Miami.
It's going to be interesting with Messi because coming up this summer, and this is for all players worldwide, now there's a FIFA date beginning middle of June. So he's going to go. I mean, they've had a really congested schedule already with Miami. And now Argentina have qualified, so maybe they don't bring him in. But if he goes back to Argentina, South America, comes back playing in Club World Cup plus MLS games, I mean, we've talked about it a lot, but how he gets managed is going to be really important. I think on a lot of their roster, to be honest.
I think if he goes on international duty, I think minimum on a return, minimum 2 weeks break.
Right.
Maybe they're going to manage him, and that's just a. And I wouldn't be surprised, and I know it's not amazing, but I wouldn't be surprised if they manage him even more coming out of the summer and just going, look, we know all our eggs are in what basket, so let's just try and be fit and cross our fingers that the magic can take over in the playoffs. We'll see.
But Tim, the challenge will be then how seriously do they take the Club World Cup? Because he's going to come, if he goes away to international duty, he's going to come back, Club World Cup starts, bang, and so. That's going to be a challenge because it's like you get in these moments and when you plan out the calendar in the beginning of the year, you go, this isn't that important. That's not that. And then you get into the league, you lose 4-1 to Minnesota. And now you're like, oh, now the next game's important. So it's a challenge.
The part you mentioned, and I don't think I'm speaking out of turn here. I think I'm interested to see how important the Club World Cup is to everybody.
Yeah.
No, I do. Like Manchester City and my Inter Miami and all the rest of the teams. Like this is, as a player who played for 13 years abroad and was exhausted at the end of the season, I then went in with the national team probably a week later, sometimes 2 days later, and you could get up for those games. I'm not so sure from a club standpoint that I'm super excited about it. Now, that's just me, but I also know that's how players think. So we'll see. I'll reserve judgment, but we'll see how seriously these teams take it.
Yeah, we don't know. Vancouver Whitecaps, LAFC tied 2-2. This is a reminder from our friends at NHTSA. Buckle your seatbelt to make it home safely. Don't risk it. Click it or ticket. Paid for by NHTSA. NHTSA is always reminding us, Tim, to get strapped in every time we get in our car. And someone who is most definitely strapped in right now is our man, Brian White in Vancouver. 2 more goals. They draw with LAFC. He's on his way, dude, to probably getting called in to the Gold Cup, and he just keeps going, man. And it's fun to watch, and it's one of those stories we talked about. Goes into January camp, makes a little name, has a huge year. We'll see where it goes.
Yeah, he's off to a great start. LD, you know how I feel about strikers. Get the goals. Get the goals when you can. Make some noise. Make the manager have a look at you. He's done that. I think he's in the shop window. I'd like to see him get called in. It's not a strong point of ours. We talk about that all the time in terms of a country. We don't produce top strikers. Every now and again, one comes through. So I think he should get a chance. If you're scoring, you should get a chance.
Agreed.
The crazy thing about strikers is you get 1 game or 2 games, which is not a lot. There's not a lot of games left before the World Cup. You bang 1 or 2 goals in, you're asking to get put on again. And so. As long as he does the business for Vancouver, there's nothing holding him back from getting a call up.
Yep. We will definitely keep our eye.
Yeah.
We are going to discuss the Red Bull LA Galaxy result, one I'm sure you reveled in. I did not. But we will have Will Kuntz, the GM of the LA Galaxy, on after the break. We recorded that interview on Thursday, FYI, so everyone keep that in context, but we will get into that later in the show.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the Premier League, the fight for 5th place. City drew away at Southampton. Ruben Diaz was fuming after about Southampton didn't try to play and they didn't do this and that. I'm like, don't care, dude. Don't care. I don't care. By the way, if Southampton had done this all year, they might still be in the Premier League next year.
That's the
right?
point.
So give them credit. And City, it's like, don't whine. That's what do you expect them to do?
Yeah.
What do you expect Southampton to do?
You're right.
You come out and play and get beat 6-0?
Totally. And look, that's on City. I mean, obviously that was our feature match on the weekend, on one of the days, whenever it's Saturday. And, it's interesting, LD, because what you see at the end of the season, and we saw this a little bit with Leicester as well, you're so fearful of going down, and then it becomes official.
So true.
And these players are almost like, we see it. They're actually playing like more free,
relieved.
You're almost relieved, which is it's a crazy sort of human nature behavior. But you see it. They're more relaxed. They're more free. The other part, and Southampton sacked their second manager of the season, so they're on another interim manager. But that's been my point, and we've talked about this in depth, right? Like these teams come up, and you mentioned it. Everyone wants to play like Pep and Man City. They don't have the quality of players.
No.
So their center backs are some guy you'd never heard of, not John Stones and Ruben Diaz, right? And so you're like, let's play expansive football. We give the ball away, we get punished. Southampton parked the bus, and they got a result. And I'm saying they spent the entire year playing a certain way, playing expansive, wanting to play between the lines, and they got cooked every weekend. Yeah. So I'm saying, well, why don't you earn the right to play in the Premier League, incrementally grab some points, and then open it up a little bit when things start to go pretty okay. But they didn't do
Forced a little bit. Totally. Right? Totally. I wouldn't say open it up, but they're just more free. They're more, Totally. Bournemouth did it as they got back in the league. It was just, that's right.
It's bad, but anyway, so interesting result there.
Just the result, Bournemouth 0, Villa 1. So big win. Ollie Watkins get the goal. Big win for Villa. Newcastle, Chelsea. Newcastle were good. Chelsea not good. They seem to have hit a wall. And bad moment for Nicholas Jackson. I saw what you said, Tim, on the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I think people have these comments that he's trying to elbow him and he's lining him up. And it's hard to judge intent, of course. He definitely knew where he was, right? And he puts his elbow up, and that's when you're going to get into trouble.
Yeah, I mean, I think we certainly covered it this weekend. I think people are wrong when they say like the pictures tell a really interesting story, because when you slow it down, he raises his arm and he looks at Sven Botman. Now, what I would say is, and I stand by, if you raise your arm, you're giving the referee a license to make a decision, and that decision might go against you. But what ends up happening in every single direct long ball up to a striker, right? There's a confrontation with the center back. So what ends up happening is a striker looks at the ball, looks at the defender, edges back. Some strikers bottle it and they go, I ain't going up with him, right? But if you do challenge, we're taught, LD, and you know this, unfortunately we don't teach our young kids to do this, but you're taught to bring your arm up, and then the defender's going to bring his arm up, and you're just trying to gain leverage, right? And when you watch Sven Botman, he actually goes down and then he goes to lift off, and Nicholas Jackson just mistimes it by a half a second. Because what he wanted to do was get his arm up and basically share airspace with Sven Botman. When Sven Botman goes up, he wants to go up with him and challenge for the ball. As it was, Sven Botman never got off the ground because he just mistimed it, and his elbow ends up going into his chin. I don't believe for 1 second that Nicholas Jackson thought, I'm about to take his chin off.
No.
That wasn't his intent.
No.
So he just mistimed it. And like I said, you give the referee license to send you off.
It's been tough to watch for him because he had such a great start to the season, and it just keeps getting worse and worse.
Yeah.
Liverpool, Arsenal. The result didn't matter.
No.
The fans, Tim, we talked about this, booing Trent Alexander-Arnold, and obviously we're both Blues and we love Everton. This was embarrassing. I mean, this phenomenal season you've had, and now this is the talking point. Are you kidding me? You're booing this guy? Played out his contract, grew up there, given everything. Maybe he wasn't everything everyone wanted, and yes, he's leaving, but that absolutely, it shocked me. Honestly, it shocked me, and it was so disappointing. It was so disappointing. So poor.
Yeah.
So poor. I don't have anything else to say. It's just,
I do.
Disgusting.
I think for a football club who fancy themselves as being incredibly classy, it was a very classless act. Trent Alexander-Arnold has given this football club everything. He grew up as a Red. He came through as a Red. Like, this concept that he owes them anything, Liverpool fans are joking themselves. 2 Premier League titles, a Champions League, and countless other cups he's brought to that football club. He doesn't owe them anything. And I know the comments are going to come in, so I'll get ahead of it. So they're going to say, we get nothing for him. This is a player worth 60 million pounds. We get nothing for him because he's going to leave on a free. Here's how this works. If you have a decent player, any type of player, and they don't have to be decent, by the way, it's good business that with 18 months running on their current contract, you renegotiate. Okay? If you can't come to an agreement, usually what, Landon, 12 months prior, then you just say, I'm going to play this thing out.
Right. Both sides know it.
Both sides know it.
Yeah.
What the issue is, it's always, these players are money hungry. And I can assure every single Liverpool fan, any football fan, because I've been in dressing rooms where players let their contracts run down. The player doesn't come in every day and go, guess what, guys? I'm going to hold this club hostage and they're going to get nothing for me. That's not how it works. Either you disagree on the terms of the deal or the money or the length. Someone doesn't agree. And sometimes it doesn't work. And then when you get to 12 months, you just, that's it. Yeah. You didn't do your job from 18 months to 12 months as a club and as a player to get the deal done. Now that's it. But to think that he owes them nothing. Like he's LD. Who are they kidding? In 14 days time, they're going to lift a trophy. And that trophy goes from the captain, Virgil van Dijk, to every player. He's going to lift the Premier League trophy, the one that takes Liverpool above Manchester United in the trophy count. He's going to lift it up to the cop and they're going to boo him. I tell you what, Liverpool fans.
They better not.
We've always had a love affair, but do one. I mean, that's a joke.
Shocking.
That's a joke.
All right, Champions League elsewhere in Europe. I know we're a little far removed now, but PSG beat Arsenal 3-1 on aggregate. Arsenal, Arteta was kind of complaining about, the best team, not in the final, but PSG deserved to be there. They were the better team over two legs.
Yeah.
They've been the best. I think they've been the best knockout stage team.
Yeah. And I don't look. I think Arsenal were very, very good. PSG did the business, and certainly Mikel Arteta feels that way about his team. I've got no beef with that. They were very good, but ultimately, PSG did advance and they did the business. Interestingly enough, I want to bring something to your attention, which I know you've heard. David Beckham and Friends, which is a show surrounding that. He was asked a question about whether Declan Rice should be Arsenal's captain or not, because obviously Martin Odegaard is the club captain. But that then brought him to talk about when he went to LA and kind of the interesting juxtaposition of when he got there and you were captain, and he regrets taking the captain's armband from you, which I just thought was, that dynamic is so interesting. But the fact that, he was talking about the situation and the regret, and obviously you were at the forefront of that, I thought was very interesting. How did you feel?
Yeah, I got my phone kind of blew up and I wasn't watching. So my phone blew up and it's funny when you play with a guy for 7 years, this, Tim, he's not just another teammate, but he's one of your teammates, right? And that's the way you view him. You forget you just forget how famous he is. And especially as time's gone on, in the moments, like when we would travel and people were crazy and all around him and whatever, but now you just see him as, it's David, right? And so, but then you realize when he says something and he references you that it becomes a huge story. So I reached out to him after and said, thank you for making those comments. We've never actually spoken about that, but I also then was putting myself in his shoes again, which I've tried to do since we had some tough beginnings in LA, and it's a tough situation he came into, right? And I can understand why either he or the club or the team or everyone thought it would be best for him, for all the reasons, to be the captain. But it was interesting to hear him upon reflection say, that was a regret, and it was the right thing ultimately, because the team needed to believe in him and have him guide in that way. And I think it helped him sort of settle in more quickly. And ultimately it all worked out, but it was nice for him to say.
How did you, in the moment, how did you feel?
I was not happy.
No,
I was not happy.
Yeah.
It's funny because I was telling you earlier about like grinding through my book this weekend.
Sure.
And I was going over those chapters because we talk about that in the book. And it's just interesting to hear him speak about it, what my perception was at the time, and go back over that time frame. But then when you look back to him, like on all these things, you're like, who cares? Like we ended up winning 3 out of 4 years championships, right? It's like, who cares? I was not happy in the moment, but in the end, if it all works out and you win, like it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. So.
Well, I think that's classic on your part because it's interesting when you talk about how alphas react, right? And that's your club, and he's a big name, and it's going to help you, but ultimately, it's still your club, and you feel a certain way. And like the way you handled it, and obviously after the fact, he's able to come out and say that is brilliant. But it's the captaincy is always an interesting thing, and not everybody who should be a captain is. So
most of the time.
Yeah.
Most of the time. But if you really genuinely, this last thing, like if you genuinely care about winning, it's like your kids, right? Like if you really love them and for whatever reason, they don't call you for 6 months, but they are just living their best life and joyous and you're happy. You're happy for them. You want them to call you, but it's not about you.
Yeah.
And so if you really genuinely care about winning and you're like, look, I'm going to be a leader on this team, whether I'm wearing that strap or not.
Sure.
Then who cares? Like it doesn't matter. We'll touch briefly on the Europa League. To be honest, Tim, I don't really care. United, Tottenham, I really don't care because they're both so disappointing to me.
Yeah.
I'm not going to watch the game, unless it's kind of just on and I have nothing to do.
Yeah.
I just don't really care about the game. They congrats to both of them for getting there. I know it's not easy. I'm not belittling it. I just don't care. I just have to tell you, honestly, I just don't care.
Yeah. I mean, I care for the fact that they're both Premier League clubs and important Premier League clubs. You talk about Big Six. Certainly not this year. The Big 16th and Big 17th, but not Big Six. But also kind of the soap opera and drama behind it all, right? Like you look at Tottenham, right, in 17th place, they could very well win. They're a better team than Manchester United. I think United will win on the day.
Agreed.
But they're a better team, better squad than Manchester United. They could win, and Ange Postecoglou could lose his job.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very possible. So there's a lot on the line. If he loses his job straight off, right? Manchester United are interesting because I think it's good that they have, as they build, and we know they're building under Ruben Amorim. This in 18 months, this team won't even look the same. I mean, there's so many players will be out the door, new play, right? So, but as you build, and you've been a part of this, it's important that you have these like mile markers that we're not great, but boy, it was good to win that and that feeling of winning. And so Ruben Amorim's downplaying it a bit, and I like Ruben Amorim. I like the way he speaks. He's kind of like, we could win this, but boy, we have a long way to go. Whereas Ange Postecoglou, on the other hand, is like, he knows his job's under threat, and he's banging that Ange drum, saying like, I'm the guy. We're in this final, and not a lot of other people are, so give us credit. So there's interesting drama there.
To be honest, I think if you gave Ange some truth serum, like in the darkest moments, I'm not sure he wants to be there anymore. Like, do you really want to deal with this anymore? So like, we'll see what happens. But maybe he wins a trophy and goes off.
Yeah.
And that's it. So
for sure.
Very just we're going to do real quick USLNT on USMNT. We're not going to dive into all the players this weekend. We just want to give our kudos to Daryl Dike, who came back after 2 Achilles injuries, 750 days between starts for him. Incredible. Scored last weekend for the first time in well over a year, about a year and a third. And just want to say congrats. And another guy is off the radar, but you never know, Tim. And so just happy for him and well-deserved and happy for him.
Happy for him. And I think it's important for, you read some of that, like what 750 days between starts, 2 Achilles, right? Like what happens in these moments is your entire work, and I know we can talk about mental health and we can talk about why your worth shouldn't be just in playing. When you're an athlete, your entire worth is, can I lace my boots up, get on the grass, and contribute? And when you're out for like almost 2 years and you have these debilitating injuries that you spend most of your days thinking, I'm not good enough. I'm never going to get back. Am I ever going to be able to compete? I know how good I was. Will I ever, like those thoughts haunt you. So the fact that he got back on the grass, banged the goal in, like that is incredible. Incredible. So, hats off to him.
It's hard to go 2 weeks, Tim.
I know.
Like much less 2 years. I'm really happy for him.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we already referenced this, to LA Galaxy GM Will Kuntz. Reminder again, this was filmed on Thursday before they got destroyed 7-0 by Red Bull. So he's in a little bit more of a jolly mood than you would expect from a GM who just lost 7-0. We will come back with Will Kuntz right here on Unfiltered Soccer with Landon and Tim, as always, presented by our friends at Volkswagen. Don't go anywhere.
The Unfiltered Soccer podcast is brought to you by Volkswagen, the presenting partner of US Soccer.
Since 2019, Volkswagen has been on a mission to drive the future of the sport we all love, and VW is committed to making it more diverse, inclusive, and accessible for everyone.
They're not just talking about it, they're out there doing it. VW's partnerships, programs, and soccer clinics are unlocking opportunities for the next generation of players and fans.
As a longtime friend of Volkswagen, I've seen firsthand how VW are connecting with fans and driving the sport forward. From working with them on clinics to being part of their incredible campaigns, it's clear. U.S. Soccer is truly powered by the people.
Thank you to VW for being our presenting partner. Learn more about how VW are supporting U.S. Soccer at VW.com. Driving without a seatbelt could cost you everything, but despite that, there are still drivers on the road who just won't buckle up. Some of those drivers will be pulled over and given expensive tickets by law enforcement.
Some of the drivers not wearing their seatbelts will be involved in crashes. Some will survive, but some won't. Wearing your seatbelt could be the difference between making it home to your loved ones and not making it at all.
Every day when you get in your vehicle and decide whether to buckle up, remember that it's the single most effective way to protect your life in the event of a crash.
Make it home safely to the people you care about. Don't risk it. Click it or ticket. Paid for by NHTSA. All right, Tim, I lobbied hard in our chat not to talk about the Galaxy this week, but it's in the name of the show, Unfiltered Soccer. So Galaxy go to Red Bull, lose 7-0. That is not misquoted. 7-0 to Red Bull. I'm sure you were reveling in it. Go ahead, give me your thoughts.
I was not. If it was the Metro Stars, I would. You know what? My thought is, so this LA Galaxy team is winless in 12 games. It's an MLS record, an unwanted MLS record. And I think back to a couple of heavy defeats I took, a couple 5-0s and one 6-0. And I remember coming away from that game, Landon, as a team, but certainly as a goalkeeper in defense, thinking like, we stink. Like we should stop playing soccer. Like that's how heavy those defeats are. You're like, I don't know if I can go play the next game. Like that's how bad I think I am. And so a lot of times those results are like an anomaly, right? Like they kind of happen on like a regular run. This team's on a horrific run.
Yeah.
And then that happens. And I worry for the team a little bit in terms of like, it's not like they can pull from like, oh, don't worry, guys. We performed really well. That was just a one-off. This has like been a trend. I'm curious. I mean, I know you're so close to this thing with the Galaxy, given your history. Yeah. Like, give me your raw thoughts on this overall.
I think your point is great. So, in the course of a season, if you are a good team or even just an average team or whatever, and you have a 4-0, 5-0, 6-1, whatever, you come in and a lot of times on Monday, the coach will say, "Not watching film, literally throwing it in the trash, and we're going to move on." Okay. We know it's not good enough. Let's move on. Right now with the Galaxy, when you're in this form and then that happens, now you start to go, do the guys really care? Have they stopped playing? That's the question. Have they stopped playing for the coach?
Yeah.
And that's what's worrisome. Greg is, I think, a great manager and a great coach. Mm-hmm. But when you get to that point, he's been there a long time now. Do the players start tuning out? And, he pulled them around on the field and berated them after the game. The question will be, Tim, now, what is the response? And sadly, I hate to say this, but they don't even have to win the next game. They just have to show that they care. Correct. And if they don't, now you're like, okay, something's going on.
Yeah.
And that's what I worry about.
Mm-hmm.
So
interesting.
All right. As I referenced, we did speak to Will Kuntz on Thursday of last week, so we will be dressed differently. You will see that. And just want you guys to have that context as you listen to the interview with Will Kuntz. And here's that interview. All right, Timmy. We get really good guests on this show. We're very fortunate, and we get an eclectic and wide range of guests. And this man who's going to join us today has a really unique story, a really interesting story that we're going to get into. He has been a part of Major League Baseball at the highest level with the Yankees. He has been a part of Major League Soccer at the highest level at the league office, and then part of both MLS teams in my former city in LA, and has a lot of interesting perspective and can talk about a lot of things that I think fans have genuine questions to, but don't understand. And this will give them the opportunity to understand and then also ask questions on the back of it. So without further ado, the LA Galaxy General Manager, Will Kuntz. Welcome in, Will. Thank you. Thanks for joining us. It looks like you are not in the office. I take it.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, guys. I'm here in my childhood bedroom in Brooklyn, New York. So came back ahead of our game against the Red Bulls.
Keeping it grimy in Brooklyn. I love that. Will, welcome, and it's awesome to have you on. I echo everything that Landon said. It's your path to the top has been incredible. It's kind of the way it should be, and we're excited to pick your brain and hear some of the anecdotes that helped you get there.
So, Will, can you dive in? So, for people who don't know, you have an interesting story. So, can you tell us how you got started with the Yankees? It's a cool story. I was reading about it again this morning, and just fill people in because it's quite unique now in this world because most people would just turn you away without even thinking about it. But back in the day, this is how people got started. So, fill us in.
Yeah, no, look, I got really lucky. I was a freshman at Williams College up in Western Mass. Played basketball there, and it was a Friday night during the season. We took our basketball really seriously, and so while the rest of the school was out doing whatever college kids do on a Friday night, I was thumbing through like an alumni directory, and I saw that George Steinbrenner, the late owner of the Yankees, was a Williams alum, and I was like, you know what, like let me take a shot, right? So I wrote him a letter and asked for an internship. I lied and said I was a Yankee fan. I grew up like a lifelong Met fan, but. Like I wrote this letter. I didn't want to just send it to George Steinbrenner Yankee Stadium. So I emailed the school president and introduced myself, said, hey, I have this letter. Do you have an address? And that turned into, an internship working for the Yankees. And I was in the baseball operations department at 19 and, like summer job working for the Yankees in the Bronx, like
wow,
Brian Cashman, like just the dream. Right. But, a really like eye-opening experience to see what everything is like at the highest level. And you guys know this, better, as well as I do, right? Like, just because there's all the money in the world doesn't mean that you've got the best people necessarily, or that people are working hard, right? You've got lazy people everywhere. You've got people who are checked out everywhere. And it was just a really good way to understand how, an organization runs, especially because as an intern, you got to run to the ticket office and drop off tickets. You got to go to the marketing department for X, Y, or Z. And you get a feel for how everybody at the club interacts. And then you also, work for Brian Cashman, you get a sense for like what it's like to put together a roster of hyper competitive guys at the highest level. Every little, percentage point matters.
Oftentimes you learn, Will, all things that you want to do if you ever get there and things that you would do, but equally as important, things that you wouldn't do or you don't want to do or how you don't do things. And so you being at a young age, starting there, I'm sure shaped, the way you do things now. And so how do you then go from Yankees in baseball, playing basketball growing up, to then Major League Soccer? How does that happen?
Yeah, I've always been a big soccer fan, right? And just always followed it, always loved it. Thought there's something really romantic about it. When you're working in baseball, because the international soccer off seasons the summer, you have all these clubs from Europe who come through Yankee Stadium, and when you're talking to other baseball teams, you're really guarded when you're talking about scouting or player development. These soccer teams, they didn't care. They're like, you guys are a baseball team. So you sit with, guys from Premier League clubs or La Liga clubs and you talk shop, right? And it's different sports, but you kind of get a feel for how they do things and what their scouting process is like. And I had just turned 30 and I went to law school at night when I was with the Yankees. I passed the bar. And, a buddy of mine worked at MLS with Tim Bezbatchenko right before he had gone to Toronto, right? And this is my buddy who's a lifelong soccer fan. We'd watch Premier League. We saw you guys play in England like every Saturday. And I was just like, hey, what's going on with this guy in Toronto, right? He signed Michael Bradley. He signed Jermaine Defoe. And he was like, oh, that's my buddy Bez. He just left the league office. And I was like, well, what did he do? He's like, well, he worked on contracts and salary budgets. And he has a law background. And I'm like, well, I work on contracts. I got a law background. I do salary stuff. I was like, you gotta get me in there. And he was like, all right, yeah, sure. So he threw my name in, and it came back like a quick no from MLS. They're like, you tick all the boxes, but no, because we want somebody who's got soccer playing experience. And then I kind of just, said no worries, and they called me a few months later and brought me in. And I was like, look, if I don't leave baseball now, this is my life, and it's sexy and it's fun, but I was worried that I'm always going to wonder what if, right? Like if I could work for a team in Europe, if I could work for like a high level, MLS team as the sport continues to grow, like I never want to be regretting that, right? And then, so I was really excited to like go work at the league office. And I get to the league office, and it's really cool because you're working with different clubs on different issues all the time, right? So I got Bruce Arena yelling at me and telling me I'm dumb, out in
No
LA.
surprise.
And then I've got, Garth
Take a number. Yeah.
Garth Lagerway in Salt Lake trying to pull an okey doke on me with some, with some technicality on a rule. And it was really great and interesting. The one thing that just killed me though is that, we weren't competing, right? Like Friday,
Right.
5 o'clock comes, we're dip daddy guys on Monday. And after 10 years in baseball at the Yankees, I missed that, right? And I really believe this world breaks out like really cleanly into like, two camps at different times. And one of those is like, you're either a league person or a club person. Right. Yeah. And I was just like, man, I'm a club guy and I need to get back to a club. And that eventually turned into, my time at LAFC.
Will, just a quick one. If I take you back to your start, like I'm 46 years old and, I know what generation I'm a part of. And so I often talk about the kids and everybody wants a shortcut, and anybody who's successful will tell you there's no shortcut. It's boring getting to the top. And I think about that climb, you at Williams College, and saying like, I'm willing to go to the bottom basement level to work my way up. And you and I share a mutual really good friend, Ben Tulibitz at the Yankees. And I'm just curious on how relationships kind of are important to you and impact the roles. I mean, I talked about starting at the bottom. You're now at the top, and you've been at the top in a couple of different organizations. How important are relationships to you, both upward and downward within those organizations?
For me, it's everything, right? Like this is a relationship-based business. And again, you guys know this better than I do because you've been in locker rooms. Sports are unique, right? Because the rest of the world kind of sees it as a 1 or a 0. If you won, it's great. And if you lost, it's terrible. And there's so much external pressure, right? And so much of what makes a team great or an organization great is that ability to come together and like face that external pressure together. And so, and you guys, again, this as well as I do, like that's so much of that is based on trust, right? Like, do I trust you to have my back? Can you trust me to have yours? How do we get there? And I think understanding where people are coming from is key. And I really take a lot of pride in grinding my way up, from an intern, because it let me see kind of what everybody goes through. Right? Now, if I'm walking through the front office, if it's, people in the, the supporter relations department, I'm like, I know what you guys are going through. And I apologize because maybe it's my fault. Right. But, you have to be able to connect to people. And then it's also like sports is a really small pond. And so there might be somebody that I worked with 10 years ago who comes back around now, and you're like, yeah, I remember what it was like working with you on something totally different 10 years ago. But, it's somebody you consider for this new role. Right. And keeping that Rolodex of people you like working with, people that, show up. You made a point like grinding is boring, right? I say it's not hard; it's just hard work, right? And everybody, I think, in this age of social media, you're like, well, I could do that. It's like, yeah, but the reason you're not doing it is because you haven't done it, right? Like there is just a value in just doing it, repetitions, right? But so much of that, like I said, is relationships and connecting with people and making sure that I set the standard, right? Like if I can't be approachable, if I can't relate to you, like then we're lost, right? Because it starts from the top down. And you've just got to find a way to make people to feel comfortable, know that this is a crazy world, right? It's not real estate. It's not finance. Like we deal with wild stuff, and MLS, it's even wilder. So making sure that you set that kind of steady, open, encouraging environment is really important.
So you talk about setting standard, and part of the reason I think the Galaxy were so good last year was the standards were high and you could feel it. It felt different for me as someone who's obviously a lifelong fan and played there. By the way, we're going to skip over your time with LAFC because there's only one team in LA that matters. So a lot of times, and you said being approachable, Will, and a lot of times people want to accept an invitation like this to come on a podcast when everything's going great. You won the championship and everyone wants to talk about you and everything. And we, for a few weeks, maybe a month now, we've reached out and been wanting to have you on. And you could easily said, no, we're good, right? And just shy away. And the Galaxy's having a terrible, historically terrible start to the season, right? But you're being approachable and you're facing it. And I give you credit for that. Can you walk people through, as a Galaxy fan myself, the challenges of one going from 2023, last or close to last in the league, to winning a championship, and now starting the season and being in last place, and why that can happen, because fans are like, well, I don't get it. Why does he trade Joveljic, and why didn't he do this, or why did they? So there's nuance, and I get this, and Tim does too, because we've sat in these meetings and we know how these things go. But for fans, they don't really get it. So can you help explain how that can happen so dramatically?
No, definitely. And look, let me just say, Jamie Alvarez, our comms director, she told me you guys want to talk to me about the Knicks. So I was like, oh yeah, Jason Kidd on, great. No, look, MLS, it's a really difficult league because it's got such strict rules that are, I think, really difficult from the outside to understand. And having been inside, I understand why they exist, but sometimes that doesn't make it any easier to live with. And I think, the toughest thing about MLS is that the rules make it impossible to have deep rosters, right? I mean, think about the teams you guys had, Man U and Everton, like so many like good players on that roster. And that means that not just you have a good team, but like the quality in training is high every day, right? When you got 16 dudes fighting for 10 spots every day, like, that constant pressure and competition makes the group better and gives results. And that's not to say that we don't have really good players who try hard, but the reality is if you lose a guy like Riqui Puig, or if you have DPs like Chicharito and Douglas Costa in 2023 who aren't playing, it's impossible to replace them, right? So we have no way of replacing a guy like Riqui, who's kind of irreplaceable to begin with, but there's no mechanism for doing that. And then with a guy like Joveljic, so it's a really crazy thing, but again, I'm going to get maybe into the weeds here, but he was a U22 player. So his budget charge was a fixed number, right? But because he turned 26 this year, his budget charge jumped $500,000. And so even if I gave him $1,000 more, he's still $500,000 more expensive, right? So he's
on the cap,
right? So he's sitting there being like, hey, I just scored 20 goals or whatever. Like I want a contract raise. And that's totally,
and he deserves it.
Yeah, he deserves it, right? Like I would give it to you if I had it, but the reality is to give you a $10,000 raise, that's a $510,000 raise on the salary cap, right? And so any offer I make you while trying to keep this team together is going to be. And I told him this. I was like, look, I can't offer you what you're worth. I'll make you my best. I'll give you my best bolt. You're not going to love it, but it's just a math problem, right? And we're kind of having this conversation, and all of a sudden Tigres comes in and is like, well, good news, we'll triple your salary. Right. And now we just can't compete. Right. There is literally no way for me to triple down salary. And then Kansas City comes in and is like, well, quadruple it. Right. And it's even further away. And look, on the one hand, it's a great thing for Dayon. He gets life-changing, bump and he deserves that. But in any other league in the world, a club like the Galaxy and where we sit relative to spend, it's like you just re-sign them. Right. You re-sign the guys you have and you add on top of that. And it's the depth piece for me, right? So if Riqui then gets hurt and you have to sell Dan, although I will say Christian Ramirez has come in and done a really good job and really productive for us, and a guy like Marco Royce is dealing with knee issues, and you've got schedule congestion early, it's like, all right, well, you're down your DP, you're down your highest paid TAM player, you can't replace either one, and you had to sell your 20-goal striker, and then you also have to make decisions on guys like Marky Delgado and Gaston Brugman. And that's the way the league is designed, right? We want to have sort of parity and want to make sure that nobody gets too dominant, but it just becomes crushing in depth. And if you lose the wrong guys, it becomes impossible to catch up. Last year, on the flip side, we were really healthy, right? And we were able to run out Riqui and Joe and Gabe and the whole group a lot. And there's a continuity that comes there. And the other piece of it too is because the rosters are so tight, if something happens to a guy like Joe Paintsill, then all right, now we're using Diego Fagundes on the wing, which means we're not using him inside, which means you then have to sort of go further down the depth chart. And that's one thing I think is really difficult because we have owners that are willing to invest, and I think even with the money we're spending now, you can have, and you guys were talking about this the other day, you can have deeper rosters, but man, it's really punishing if you have the wrong injuries in MLS.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this, because that insight is incredible. And our listeners are going to be like just drooling, because we are as well. There's so much that on the outside people don't understand. Now, my next question, though, I want to paint a picture for you. So I've been in MLS since 1998. I'm slightly older than Landon. He then came slightly after me, but we've seen it. I was part of the group that said, to hell with this. We're going to take you to court because single entity is not fair. And then the court said, shut up and go play soccer. And it is fair, right? And so we know that in order, and Landon's talked about this a lot, from its inception, in order to keep the league together, there was very few owners. You had to kind of keep things by the book, or else this league, MLS, would end up like all the other North American soccer leagues and it would just go bust. But as you said, we now have owners who are willing to invest. This sport is alive and well and more prosperous than it's ever been. And I'm an owner in the league, and we know valuations are incredibly high. What you use the word mechanisms. Everybody does, and that's right. There's so many mechanisms to build a roster. What stops MLS as a whole from saying, here's a fixed budget, I'll make up a number, 10 million per squad or 20 million per squad. It doesn't matter what the number is. You have 20 million to build your squad. Have at it. Build it however you spend 19 million on one player and then figure out the rest. But do it how you like. What is stopping MLS from allowing someone like you to say, forget mechanisms, forget age, forget vehicles of getting players into the team and into the league. You have a cap of 20 million. You can do whatever you want. If you stink and waste your 20 million, guess whose fault that is? Your own. What stops the league from doing that?
I think it's in all these things, it's our ownership, right? And that's a group of now 30 owners. And that's a big pool of people, right? It's the biggest ownership group in any international football league in the world. And they all need to be aligned. It's like a majority or supermajority in order to affect something like this. And it's difficult, right? You have some people who've been in the league for a long time who say we need to keep the structures in place to protect growth. You've got, some of these new ownership groups that have paid, 150, 300, 500 million dollars just to get into the league, or like, hey, I just stroked this big check. Let me do it what I want, right? And you have people who are in the middle. I think the issue becomes, when you've kind of been around these conversations, is what's the right sort of like loosening that doesn't totally create an imbalance. Now, look, you're talking to a GM of a team in Los Angeles. I would just, make it unlimited, right? Or really raise that ceiling. Because I think the reality is most GMs would tell you, you'd be better off with a team of like 18 to 20 guys making $1.5 million than
100%.
a team
100%.
of 3 guys making 20 and 15 guys making 6.5 between them, right? It's
absolutely.
This is a weakest link sport. It's a depth sport. And I think part of it too is 32 years ago the issue was that soccer wasn't popular, right? We needed the World Cup here to kind of grow the game. But everybody younger than I'm a little bit younger than you guys, but everybody younger than us, like, they've grown up with soccer on PlayStation and Xbox. You can watch whatever Premier League game you want. Like, like RAI in New York when I was growing up, you could watch like a random Italian league game, like
same.
Champions League final on like a Wednesday, right? But now, like, you can watch whatever you want. And the issue isn't that people aren't watching soccer; it's that people are watching really, really good soccer, right? Yeah. And that dynamic has flipped, and that's a great thing, right? And you guys get a lot of credit for that. But we're now in a different world where, like, we don't need to justify ourselves as a league or soccer anymore, but we need to find ways to increase the product. Because I'm a big believer in better teams make for better product, make for better league, make for better revenue. But that's a big shift and an uncomfortable shift for a lot of our owners to come to.
Yeah, I think sorry, real quickly, and I think the big miss to your point, Will, is simply this. When the league started, there weren't enough, and this is no disrespect to the founding fathers, there weren't enough knowledgeable soccer people. We didn't have enough growth, right? You're now talking about, and there's 3 of us on here, but even our broader listeners, within the MLS now, there are geniuses. There are geniuses on the pitch. There are geniuses in the front office who have connections worldwide. Mm-hmm. The name brand of MLS is global. We now have the ability to not worry that the league's going to fold because someone's going to mismanage a team. That's gone out the window, and I still think there are some people who believe that can happen, and I'm not one of them. This league is so healthy now.
Yeah, they just put out these valuations, right? It's like AC Milan, Inter Milan, LAFC, Miami, Galaxy, right? I mean, like, we're top 15. I mean, that's 30 years ago, 25 years ago, that would have been unheard of, right?
Yeah, sure.
All right, well, you've given us a lot of time. I feel like we could sit here for hours.
Yeah,
there's so many questions, but I don't want to get you fired, so we're going to stop now. Congrats to your Knicks. We're happy for your Knicks. We hope it's early. There's a long way to go, but next time we'll talk about your Knicks. Last, real quick, just a few seconds. We've referenced him a lot, but is there update on Riqui Puig's injury? I know Galaxy fans want to know how he's doing, where he's at in his recovery, etc.
Yeah, Ricky's progressing really well, right? I mean, he did his ACL in late November, right, and got surgery in December. And there's a pretty fixed timeline for what ACLs. Luckily, these days there's not like a lot of question involved. Ricky's a little bit of a slighter guy. He's got a slight build, and his game is a little more based on agility and being shifty and deceptive. So I think that there's some, just it's going to take him some time to get fully comfortable on it. And you guys know, like, usually you come back 100% before you fully trust it, right? So, Riqui will be in town for the LAFC game next weekend, so we'll get to touch base with him. And he's working on his move back over to LA from Barcelona, where he's been doing his initial rehab. So, awesome. But he's been over a couple times already, and we check in with him on a daily basis. We've had trainers go out there. So, the most important thing for us is that he comes back fully healthy. If you let Riqui decide, he'd push himself back on one leg, right?
Never let the player decide.
In December.
Well, that's great news, and we wish him continued success in that recovery. And for the record, we don't speak about Riqui a lot. Landon speaks about Riqui a lot. I think he's a great player, but Landon is in love with him, and rightfully so.
We have a bromance. It's fine.
Galaxy legends stick together,
Amen. All right. Well, it's been awesome, man. Enjoy Brooklyn. Good luck this weekend against Red Bull. Let's hope get off the schneid and get the season going. But thank you very much. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we will get into your questions in the AT&T Fan Connection and talk anything but soccer right here on Unfiltered Soccer with Landon and Tim, presented by Volkswagen. Thanks, Will. Stay right there.
Thanks, fellas.
Timmy, hard to believe, but this year will be 25 years since I first wore the jersey for the U.S. men's national team. Crazy. I still remember it, though, giving me goosebumps just to think about it.
Yeah, there's nothing like it. The pride you feel, the pride your family and friends feel watching you. I remember making my debut for the national team in Birmingham, Alabama. My mom was there in the stands. It was just amazing knowing that she was there watching me accomplish my dreams.
Yeah, mine was in the Coliseum against Mexico. It was crazy. I was nervous, certainly overwhelming anxiety all leading up to it. But in moments like that, it's really, really important to stay grounded and find time for yourself to choose a chill mindset.
Yeah, when you embrace a chill mindset, it's a good time to choose chill and crack open a Coors Light.
When these moments in your career are right around the corner, you got to find some quiet time to relax with the people you love who know you the best to enjoy the moment. Just drink it in, choose chill, crack open a Coors Light.
Make the most out of the times you choose to chill. Choose Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door. Visit CoorsLight.com/USLNT.
As always, celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. Beer.
There's a lot in life that feels like it should be guaranteed that just isn't. Your team winning the championship, the weather being good on game day, your friends remembering who has the tickets. Some days, you're a goal-scoring machine.
And some days, the ball just passes you by. Right here on Unfiltered Soccer, we know that no matter how much you love the beautiful game, nothing on the field is guaranteed. Thankfully, AT&T is introducing a brand new guarantee, the AT&T Guarantee.
The AT&T Guarantee means connectivity you can depend on, deals you want, and service you deserve. Or they'll make it right.
Whether you're in the stands, watching with friends, or just cheering from home, you can count on the AT&T Guarantee.
Learn more at att.com/guarantee. Terms and conditions apply. It is time now for everyone's favorite time of the week, the AT&T Fan Connection with everybody's favorite person, Jordan. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you so
wonderful.
much for asking.
Jordan, how'd you feel about the Liverpool fans?
Yeah, she took a Liverpool shirt off.
Since you are such
I
a
didn't-
diehard.
No, I'm wearing my FC St. Pauli shirt because it looks like they're actually going to stay in the Bundesliga this season. So I have more than one favorite team. But
I love your soccer knowledge.
how do I feel about
How do you feel about your...
Mm-hmm.
No, not
I
him
don't-
going. How do you feel about
I don't
your
like
fans, your people?
I don't like the booing.
Mm.
I don't.
She doesn't like booing in general. She's like so positive.
That's not true. There are some things that I would boo, but I just feel like I don't know. I don't speak on behalf of all Liverpool fans, but I didn't love that.
How do you feel about Trent going?
I don't really love that either, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. But at the same time, like, he's a person who's entitled to make decisions that are best for him. And if he wants to leave, that's totally fine.
That's
like you said,
refreshing from a fan. Jeez.
He's still going to lift the trophy, and he still helped get us here. So that part is good.
Agreed.
And but that I also don't think that anybody should not tackle him when we play Real Madrid in the Champions League next year.
The voice of reason, Jordan.
Agreed.
What do you got for us?
Every once in a while, I get it right. That's
Every
fine.
once in a while.
I've got some what if questions for you this week.
Okay.
We're going to start with one that we got from Chris via email. I've always wondered if Hugh Dallas had awarded the handball in the 2002 quarterfinal against Germany, which U.S. player would have stepped up to take the penalty?
Landon,
going there. That's a great question. So in 2002 World Cup, played Germany quarterfinals. There's a handball on the line by Torsten Frings. It's not called by Hugh Dallas, the referee. Who would have taken the penalty? I'm trying to remember who was on the field because it was the 5th game. My gut was going to say Claudio. I think Claudio would have taken it because the only other person on the field who would have really taken it was they wouldn't have given it to me, and I guess it would have been McBride.
I think Claudio takes it all day long.
Yeah, Claudio takes it.
Yeah.
And buries it. And we go to the semis and we beat South Korea and we go to the final and beat Brazil, and I have a World Cup trophy.
Wow. What a day. Hugh Dallas, you ruined it. You ruined history.
What a great question.
Dan via Instagram has a similar question about the 2002 World Cup quarterfinal match. What if Eddie Pope's late header goes in?
Mm-hmm. Same thing. We would have lifted a trophy.
Eddie Pope, man.
It's all your fault, Eddie. Just kidding.
Jonathan via Instagram wants to know, what if Greg Berhalter had been replaced a year or two earlier?
I think there's a cautionary tale here. What if Jurgen Klinsmann was replaced 2 games prior, right? At the beginning of the cycle? What if Greg Berhalter was replaced a year earlier? Like, you have to bear these things in mind. Now, Greg's a little bit different because he took over with 3 years prior to the last World Cup, or 2.5 years? I can't remember because I know and Dave Sarachan was interim manager before that or something. But
I think it was 3 years.
Yeah, but yeah, you have to be careful of that because what ends up happening with the national team is you don't lose. Like if you're a club team and you stink, you only lose like half a season, and your manager can like help rebuild. When you're a national team manager, you don't have a lot of games over the course of 4 years. So when you sack a manager after a short period of time into a cycle, you lose a lot of games. You lose a lot of opportunity to develop a team, and so the runway is really short. So I think the team would be in a better place preparation wise if another manager was given the opportunity to have longer with this team.
You just need more time, and I think what we're learning is probably 1 cycle is enough, generally speaking. Because if you get into the second and there's problems, now you have to make a really hard decision, and you just need more time. So I would say if they were thinking about doing it, then you just move on. You don't. If it's absolutely this is the guy or woman and we're staying with them, then you stay with them. But if you're like, I don't know, you should probably just move on.
Yeah.
So then by the same token, based on an explanation you guys gave about what happened in the run up to 2018, that probably would have been beneficial.
Unequivocally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, and also there's inevitably, especially with the national team, a new voice comes in, new man, you're going to respond. So like even if you just got one result there because it's just a new manager, you're not going to learn how to play differently or whatever. It's worth it. Right.
Yeah.
One more World Cup question from Drew via Instagram. What if USA did beat Belgium in the 2014 World Cup game?
I think we got worked because the next game was Argentina, right? I think that's right. I think the next game was Argentina. We were spent after that 100 and whatever.
You guys were exhausted.
God, I mean, we just the boys put in such a shift. I mean, we were getting pulled from pillar to post that we couldn't get near the ball, and like the amount of running we did was incredible. I mean, so unlike Landon, I don't think I'd have a World Cup trophy had we gotten past.
But you might have made 17 saves in the next game instead of 16.
I mean, I played against Messi twice and he didn't score. So maybe who knows? But it's a great question.
Here's one for Landon from Eric via Instagram. What if Landon never left Everton? There would be one fewer statue outside of.
Well, there would be one fewer statue outside, but maybe there would be a statue outside Goodison. Just kidding. Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, what I always asked myself is how long each year could I maintain that level of output? Because every match was like at least 11 kilometers, so whatever, 7 miles which was the most I would ever do in an MLS game.
Mm.
And by the end of my 10, 12, 13 game run, I was shattered. I mean, shattered, like needed a couple weeks to just, and now granted, I was coming off the end of an MLS season too. So I had no break, but man, it's so demanding. So I would always ask myself, like, when you know there's an end, Tim, you got 13 games, like you can put it in. But by the end, I was like, man, like you got to go again and again and again. And it's that league is brutal.
It's great insight because the players who do it year in, year out.
I have so much respect for them, man. So much respect.
It's crazy.
And Champions League and FA Cup and their national team. And it's just like, wow.
I think the answer is maybe we would have won an FA Cup. Maybe.
Ooh.
Right?
Maybe.
Something put us over the attacking.
I mean, we could. We beat the big teams.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could have. Yeah.
And then the show would be hosted by 2 FA Cup winning
players. Speak on it, JR. Speak on it.
Okay, last one. This one's from Michael via email, and I think it is a direct correlation to the earlier part of the show. How long do you guys think Greg Vanney holds on to his job? He's a G for sure, and I hate seeing anyone lose their job, but 7-0 is embarrassing.
Well, I think my take is what Landon mentioned is what is the response? Because what you have to realize when you're Will Kuntz or you're any GM and you're hopefully have enough distance, right? So you're in touch with the coaching staff and technical staff, but you have enough distance so you can kind of create clarity. You're looking at. We all look at results as fans. We look at results. When you're on the inside, you have to look at what does it smell like? Are the players' shoulders hunched? Are they bright and lively?
They still listening?
Do they still listen? Yeah. What's the feel? What's the pulse? And we don't have that. And Landon might, because he's closer to it, but we don't have that pulse. And so results aren't the be all end all when it comes to deciding whether someone gets sacked or not. It's certainly a narrative and it's certainly optics, and sometimes optics win out. But I would suggest the best player from the championship team is out. Second or third best player went to Kansas City, right? That's not excuses. I mean, look, the LA Galaxy are the haves, not the have-nots. So sure, they're held to a different standard. But I would pump the brakes a little bit on the Greg Vanney situation because I think he's a good manager and he just brought you a championship, and we have to take some of this into context. Now, all that being said, that's not an excuse to not win in 12 games. That's not an excuse. So there's an issue there, and it's just a matter of how big it is.
So important to remember, the Galaxy still have 2, $10 million wingers on their team, right? I think about Salt Lake, a team I follow closely. They don't have anywhere close to that, right? Nowhere close. So that is context that matters. Riqui Puig is unique in everything he does. Joveljic was really important to the team, and you don't have either of them. But that you could get away with being like 10th or 11th place right now with that all being said, not winless in 12. And Tim said it perfectly. Majority of coaches, managers get fired not because the results are going poorly, but because of what the feeling is and the culture and the environment in the locker room. That is so. Right now, before this weekend, I would have said he's not getting fired. Like they're gonna hold on to him, and they're gonna wait till Puig is back, and they're gonna work their way back, and everything's gonna be fine. You lose 7-0, and the team kind of quits on you. Now your antennas start to go up, and you go, oh, what's going on there? There's something more going on there, and importantly, and this is an important part, and people have to remember this: where a coach is in their contract plays a huge part into this. So after last season, and this is public, Vanney and the Galaxy could not agree on a new deal. So he's playing in the last year of his contract, JR. So he now does not have a contract for next year. So if the Galaxy decide to either let him go or play it out, they don't have to pay him anything. And I know these are billionaire owners, but like you have to pay a couple $1 million to release a coach. It's a real thing. So that plays a huge part. If he had a 3 or 4 year deal right now, they'd go, we ain't letting him go. Unless they lose 7-0 3 or 4 times in a row. But that also plays a big part of it. So that makes it a little interesting right now. And I love Greg. I think he's done a phenomenal job. Definitely don't want to see him lose his job either. But, just being real, those are all factors that play in right now.
All right. That's it. Thanks, guys.
All right, Timmy. Last but certainly not least this week, anything but soccer. And this is a soccer story, but it's a human story. Savvy King from Angel City, she plays with Sid and Allie on Angel City, had a really scary moment, 74th minute last week of their game. She collapsed on the field. She was under supervision for 10 minutes before being taken to the hospital. Don't have a lot of answers as to what happened. We do know she is awake and responsive and communicating many days after this happened. Glad that she's doing well. I think it's important for our listeners to understand when something like this, unfortunately for both of us, nothing this serious has happened, but when something like this happens, what it's like on the field. And just for context, they did end up finishing the match. We were a little confused as to, why they would or wouldn't. Generally, if someone is responsive and getting carted off and okay, then you say, okay, everyone feels okay finishing. If you remember the DeMar Hamlin incident with the Buffalo Bills a few years back, that match was abandoned, and they said they would come back and play it if they needed to, but it ended up being irrelevant in the playoffs. We all remember when Christian Eriksen collapsed on the field, and that match was resumed quite a bit later. The Mwamba incident that happened quite a few years back, and that match was abandoned. So just look, I haven't been in that situation, but I have been on the field, training sessions in particular, where someone does their ACL or someone, I saw a guy's ankle get dislocated. And it's people have to remember we're human, Tim. And when you see that in person, someone you love and that you go out and battle with, it's really jarring. It really is. It's a tough moment to watch.
It is. I don't have a ton more to add to that, other than I have been on the field when a teammate has snapped their leg, and it's hanging off, and it just it's moments like those that you realize like you get so excited and you get so invested in the game, and that's what's asked of you, and then those moments happen, and literally soccer doesn't matter anymore. So to Savvy King, obviously we send our love and our well wishes, and hopefully the road to recovery and health is at the forefront, and the rest of it, the soccer side, is completely secondary.
You're so emotionally invested, testosterone, adrenaline, everything's pumping. And every time you go on the field, you have to forget. I've heard NFL guys say this. You have to forget that you could get seriously hurt. It never came into my mind ever, but you can get seriously hurt. And I think people need to appreciate that. Yes, these athletes make a lot of money and they're famous and all these, but like you are putting your body at serious risk every time you go on the field. And so Savvy, get well. Hopefully she is okay. Hopefully she is able to continue playing, because sometimes you can have issues, heart issue or something where you just can't play anymore. So we are wishing you the best. We thought it was important that we speak to that this week.
Absolutely.
All right. Great show. Thanks to Will Kuntz for coming on, even in the midst of a really hard time for his club. I give him a lot of credit for that. As always, we appreciate you guys listening. Your support is awesome. We missed not being with you guys last week. Please remember, subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, everywhere you get your podcasts, and follow all across social media for lots of bonus content.
Yeah, thanks, everybody. Thanks, Will, for coming on. You're a gentleman. So much incredible insight and knowledge. We certainly appreciate it, Landon and I, and we know our listeners will as well. Thank you to our presenting sponsor, BW, and our Fan Connection sponsor, AT&T. And our Unfiltered Refresh sponsor, Coors Light.